Black Widows and coconuts out of play, we have it here on Drop Your Buffs, a podcast discussing Australian Survivor. On this episode, we'll be discussing the Australian Survivor episode that aired this week on Sunday, Monday and Tuesday. So if you haven't seen this episode yet and don't want to be spoiled, grab your stuff and head back to camp. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to the podcast as well. Go to dropyourbuffs.com for all the details. And with me tonight, I have my usual co-host, Craig. How's it going, Craig?
Good, Stu. How are you going?
Yeah, pretty good.
Excellent. Good to hear.
Thanks everyone for bearing with us with the last episode. I know that the audio quality wasn't quite up to scratch. We've got we aren't so back in the studio yet, but we have upgraded our coconuts though, so it's a slightly better coconut system than the last time.
Excellent.
And it should sound a lot easier on the ears anyway. Tonight.
Yeah, I do hope I don't sound like I'm on the other side of the world like I did last time.
That's right.
Good to be sounding better.
That's right. Well,
it's been an eventful old week, hasn't it?
It is. And I mean, and with this podcast, we're going to try and cover the 3 episodes, so it's quite a lot to cover. Shall we start with the Sundays one, Craig?
Yeah, so Sunday began with everyone sort of reeling from Andrew's departure the night before. It's a bit of concern from Connor. I wish we'd discussed that. He was feeling pretty apprehensive in a discussion he had with Kate, and I just think everyone who wasn't in on that was really quite shocked that Andrew went voted out. And we certainly saw that. We certainly saw that when they reached the immunity challenge the next day. Nick was particularly surprised to see Andrew gone.
Yes, that's right.
But we sort of had some glimpses into where some of the alliances might be starting to fall, particularly on the Sinapu side, which we weren't having much of an opportunity to sort of see because they're just not going to tribal council, so we're just not seeing who's talking to who and who likes who. But we saw Sam and Lee out fishing. Yes. Sam saying things like "Lee reminds me of my brother." So I definitely think there's a really strong alliance forming over there between Lee and Sam. We'll talk about that. Go on.
There was a definite bromance there, no doubt.
Absolutely. So we'll touch on that later. When towards the end, I think we know as a result of Tuesday's episode that we've got the merge coming. So I think we need to have a bit of a chat about how the merge might shake out, and we'll cover that a bit more. But that was I thought a good little piece of strategic. Well, good to see anyway. What might happen when they all come together, but very strong there. So I loved this challenge they did too, when they did their immunity challenge on Sunday night. This was the one that was a bit like Connect 4 with running a gauntlet and a catapult all in one. What more could you want?
Yeah, no, it was fantastic because it was a great blend of physicality as well as strategy, which is always great. And then you get it just gives you these great opportunities for quotes with JLP said, for instance, that coconut is out of play.
Yes.
How many times can you use that, in normal conversation?
Look, I'm going to try and slip it into something I say at work tomorrow. There's got to be a way I can get that into my things I talk about at work tomorrow. That coconut's out of play. And look, it was great to see, there was some. We almost got a little bit crickety. I thought there were some classic catches. Connor took some absolute screamers there, catching those coconuts as they came through the catapults, and
he was very good actually.
And I sort of felt sorry for him because he was afterwards after Vavau ultimately lost that challenge. He was blaming himself as he'd fallen in the mud, but really he took those 2 classic catches, and I don't think he's got anything to be ashamed of the way he performed there.
No. Well. But Sam, he was fantastic on defence. He was pretty hard to get a coconut past.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But then we it all built up. So anyway, I was going to say Vavau, lost that challenge, and so then it all built up to what is one of the great all-time Survivor moments. So I thought the way the rest of that night played out. So we had everyone, we had Craig and we had Connor and we had Sue and we had Kate, and they all thought it was going to be very, very easy. Not knowing that they were about to be the victim of an Academy Award performance from Phoebe and Christy, because they didn't know that Phoebe had the immunity idol. And I just think that was the most masterful bit of outwitting and outplaying I think I've ever seen.
It was good, but I thought that one of the the main reason why they were able to execute their plan so perfectly, that the blind side, was because Connor told Phoebe that they were going to vote for her. So only if they knew that could they really, close in for the kill.
Exactly.
So it was just such a terrible Survivor move. I can't believe Connor, who's supposed to be a student of the game, I don't know, he just makes some basic mistakes, I thought.
But I think, as well as being a student of the game, Connor is just deep down that sort of person where, we've talked about this before, he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he felt that was the right thing to do. And he actually said it himself. If he'd known that there was an idol in play, he would never have done that. But they clearly just had absolutely no inkling or whatsoever that there was an immunity idol in play. Now, I think Craig should have had a suspicion, because he'd been looking for it for days and couldn't find it. I don't know. I reckon I would have thought, I can't find it, and I'm looking in a pretty obvious place. Someone might just have found this. I don't know. But look, the execution was great because Christy was in there as well, and she did the tears, and it really was. No matter who you're going for in this game, I thought that was just a masterful bit of play, and I just really enjoyed that tribal council.
It was, but it's I guess it's a short-term strategy, and as we see in the later episodes, that comes back to haunt Christy. So
it certainly did. So the final vote there after that amazing tribal council was Phoebe 4, Craig 2. Craig's 2 votes came from Phoebe and Christy, and I thought Craig handled it really well in his confessional afterwards.
He did. He
was laughing. He took it on the chin. She found my idol and threw it in my face, and look, I think that's really the only way you can take that. So, well done to everybody, I reckon. Particularly Phoebe for pulling that off, Christy for her best supporting actress role, and Craig for taking it as a really good sport.
Well, I was really sorry to see Craig go, because he was definitely one of my favourites. He was very entertaining to watch, and it was a shame to see him go, actually.
Well, as a member of the Craig Club myself, I was certainly very, very keen on Craig doing a little bit better than that. But look, he gave us a lot of great entertainment while he was there. So, well done.
Yeah, well, I mean, as they'd said earlier, they were talking about the different options as to who to vote out, and they recognised Craig as being a challenge asset, which he is. So, it was a big thing to take him out, but he did appear to be running the show. So I guess they were really trying to take the head off of that alliance of 4, weren't they? That's what they were trying to do.
Oh, yeah, I definitely think that's the thinking. I mean, the way Phoebe just pulled all this off from the position in the tribe she was in was really quite amazing. But I think that's right. I think by getting rid of Craig, it destabilised that alliance of Craig, Connor, Sue and Kate, and just created a little bit of doubt and uncertainty that might have just worked for her. But so that was Monday. That was a cracker. Sorry, that was Sunday. I mean, I loved that. So then we go on to Monday.
Just back on Sunday before we go on. Yeah. I was just over with Sinatra, even though they haven't gone to tribal that we can really sort of talk about too much. They did show a few things, and one was they start off by saying Kylie was been really upsetting everyone, it seems like, and we aren't seeing enough to really know, but it seems like she's not really she just doesn't gel with that tribe. And the bit that they were referring to was the sleeping positions in their tribal sort of tent sort of thing, and that there wasn't quite enough space in there, and it seemed like Kylie was sort of Kylie was taking up space and wasn't moving over or something like that. But it just seemed to blow up into a big thing, though, didn't it?
Someone said it was like making mountains out of a molehill. But I mean, without knowing, like, I think she spoke to camera at one stage and said, "Look, every other night I've been on the end or near the fire, and so the one night I'm trying to get a little bit more comfortable and it causes an issue." We haven't seen that, so we don't know what that's about. But yeah, it created a bit of an issue. She definitely does seem to be on the outside. We've talked about this before. I don't entirely understand why it is. But as you say, we're not seeing enough of what's going on over at Sanapi to really understand that properly. And I think we'll get to that as well when I talk later about when we get to the merge discussion. We'll talk more about Kylie then. But that was. I don't think that helped the case. And she had Matt, who wasn't particularly happy with it. She had Jenna Louise, who called her out on it. So yeah, there's something there going on. I don't really understand, to be quite honest.
Don't you find that when Kylie speaks to camera, I just find it a bit? It's a bit hard to watch. I don't know. It's just the way that she talks or her delivery is. It's almost a bit staged, like the way that she talks and her phrases and so on. I don't know. It's just a bit overdone, it seems.
There's a lot of people doing that, though. They're all being extremely diplomatic when they're asked direct questions at challenges and also at tribal council. I mean, I think Brooke said something the other day that I just thought, oh gosh, there's a lot of politicians involved in this game, I think, and so I don't think that's confined to Kylie. I think quite a few of them are doing that, which, as you would. I mean, you're on TV, you don't want to be mean and nasty. So, but yeah, so that was one of the few glimpses we've really had this week in what's going on over at Sanapu.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, well, we better move on to Monday.
Yes, Monday.
So we've got the aftermath now of Phoebe's departure. Very happy music played when they showed the Sanapu camp on day 28. Halfway, everyone's quite excited to be halfway through the game, and it came out that the alliance of Craig and Sue and Kate and co had no idea that Phoebe had that alliance. And Sue was very definite in saying, I want Phoebe out. She's a snake. And called her, I love this, she called her Miss Weepy Head. Give her an Academy Award. That was, but they I think they recognised they were well and truly played, and that it was time for Phoebe to go.
I mean, Sue was very angry with Christy as well, that Christy had played them about knowing about the idol.
Yeah.
And,
well, there's a bit of lying going on there, wasn't there? There was that lying. I think Christy was saying these things about, I hadn't seen it. But, I don't think anyone was falling for that.
No, it seemed that Sue was fairly bitter about all that. And that's, but I mean, this is all what Survivor's about too, isn't it? Like, you can't get too emotional about it, I guess, because people are going to lie.
I guess when you're living it, though, when it's just like your whole world for the time you're in there, it would feel very personal, particularly when you're living with these people and you made certain promises. I think it'd be really quite hard to switch that off and just go, oh, well, it's a game.
I think it's particularly hard for Sue because she said at some stage that she hates
conflict, yeah.
Yeah, and at one stage she just left that discussion because I think she just had to get away. So what do you think about Christie's fishing methods?
Oh, with Rowan's undies. Yeah. That was novel.
Yeah,
I think Phoebe thought it was pretty novel too.
I know.
It didn't catch anything, did it?
Not that we saw, even though that there were lots of fish there.
I couldn't work out whether the idea behind the undies was using the undies because after having been worn for 20 odd days they might be good as bait. or whether she was using it as almost like a fishing net. I couldn't work out which was which there. But look, good luck. I don't think she got anything, though.
No, that's right.
And I think Phoebe just sort of went, okay, well, you keep on doing that, and let me know how you go.
That's right.
It's novel. Haven't seen that before. So we had two challenges in Monday night's show, and the first one was the memory challenge. We got increasing numbers of Sanapu people sitting out, of course, as our numbers dwindled. So we had Kylie, Elle, Flick and Lee sitting out that one. And Matt didn't do it. I think Matt was a little bit disappointed with how he went, the magician that he is, and he got his wrong. But yet again, we had a Sanapu win. Yeah,
well, we certainly have seen memory challenges before on Survivor, but I don't think we've seen it done exactly this way, though, have we? I don't recall seeing it like this.
No, I think I've seen something similar to that before.
I thought it was quite good. It was,
it was
good. The way that it was done, and the way that there were several times when they set up their objects on that stand, and the last one would just topple over back into the tray. It wasn't just about memory. It was about placing the objects properly on the stand as well.
That's right. So they didn't fall over. And,
that's right.
Yeah, muck it all up. Yeah, that's right. So that challenge sort of gave us the opportunity to see some real contrast between the tribes. So we had just mass excitement going on at Sanapu as they arrived for their feast. And Lee was feeling like a fat king and was going to worry about his guts later.
well, even before that challenge started, and JLP was describing what the reward was, he said, "And you will win a Samoan feast," and everyone just goes, "Yay!" You know, but what I was thinking, do you know exactly what Samoans eat? Maybe you don't want a Samoan feast.
Yeah.
You know,
And it didn't all stay down either, as we saw.
No, that was quite graphic, wasn't it?
I think we saw a little bit too much there.
Yes.
And then over to Vivau, where they're also having a little feast, but they were feasting on some snails that Christy had caught. And Connor said, "I like that a bit too much."
Yeah, that's right.
But there was some real disappointment there. We had Phoebe talking about how she'd never lost this much in her life, and Connor saying just how hard it was, and it's very easy to let it all get to you. So they were certainly struggling Vivau by that point. And then we got to we got through that. Everyone seemed to recover from that quite well. Sanapu had food in their bellies and obviously much stronger again. And we saw various bits of chatting going on at Sanapu there. Kylie had a particularly awkward moment when she had a chat with Kylie, Flick, Elle, and Jenna Louise about the potential of a female alliance.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, that was
went over like a lead balloon.
It was just tumbleweeds rolling down the beach, wasn't it?
It was.
So there's something about Kylie that they just do not click with.
No. I think Kylie only seemed to really get on with Pete. Didn't she? The red suit guy.
Yeah, the red suit guy went home some weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And apart from that, she didn't really connect with anyone. So
Flick made it very clear after that discussion that she found it all very awkward. No one wants to be in alliance with Kylie. So I think we'll park that, put that in the back of our minds, and we'll come back to it about where Kylie may end up going in a merged tribe. So anyway, by this stage, Phoebe was feeling a little bit nervous now because she'd obviously played her idol.
That's right.
Didn't have that anymore, so what was she going to do? And then, of course, we went off to the immunity challenge, which was held in pouring rain. And interestingly, did you notice that JLP did not appear to be getting wet?
I saw that, and I wasn't sure. I was trying to work out whether the clothes he was wearing just didn't show up the rain, or maybe it was filmed at an entirely different time.
well, there is that, or someone was holding a large umbrella above him out of shot. But everyone else was getting absolutely drenched.
That's right.
And he seemed to be bone dry, and that's a contrast to what we normally see with the US season, because Jeff's in there getting wet just like everyone else, if that's the way it works out. So I thought that was interesting. That was that was interesting. So anyway, once again, Sanapu won, and we find out as well as immunity that Sanapu has an advantage, and the advantage is that one person from Sanapu can go to the Vivau's Tribal Council to observe it. Now, as events turned out, that wasn't all of the advantage.
No.
There was a second bit of advantage, and this is the first time I was a little bit, I wasn't a big fan of this. I have no problem with that as a concept and having a twist like that. Actually, we'll get to that. We'll talk about Tribal Council, and then we'll talk about that, because we had a bit of strategizing going on back at camp.
Yep.
So no one feeling particularly safe, and a lot of discussion about what's going to happen. Sue was talking about keeping her vote to herself. She wasn't enjoying this at all. Phoebe and Connor had a conversation where Connor basically promised Phoebe she wasn't going anywhere. And then Phoebe was going to make him lie to Christy, which did not sit well with him at all. But Phoebe saying it's not a lot. This isn't life; it's a game. I'm playing to win, and I don't think anyone's got any doubt about that. She was playing hard.
Yeah.
So anyway, off we go to Tribal Council. Brooke's there. Lots of discussion there about the blind side. You got any thoughts about that Tribal Council, Stu?
Yeah, it just really revolved around whether Christy knew about the blind side, and she was sort of hanging on to this vague excuse that because she'd never seen the idol, she didn't actually know for sure about it. But really, I mean, she did know about it for sure. So
well, we know that. Yeah. And I don't think she was fooling anyone.
No, that's right. No, and so of course with that tribal council, it turned out we had another episode where no one actually went home, which is the second time now that's happened, isn't it? So,
and this is the second part of the advantage that Sanapu got. Now, so the result was that Brooke, in addition to observing everything that happened, Brooke got to choose a member of the vow that was going to go across to Sanapu. So let's call it a kidnapping.
Yes.
And it was ultimately Sue who she chose. Now, I have a bit of a problem with this. As I say, I don't have a problem with the concept of the kidnapping occurring. I actually quite like that as a twist. But what I think they should have done is it should have been made clear that something else was going to happen. I think everyone thought all it is someone from Sanapu sitting there observing. But I think even if they wanted to keep it a secret for maximum entertainment effect, and I understand why they do that, I really think that there should have been something that said, and there's a second bit to this, which will be revealed at Tribal Council. To me, it felt just a little bit too cute and manufactured.
But how would that really have changed anything, though? Because if they still don't tell them exactly what this second part of the reward is, how would that change what they did at Tribal Council particularly?
I don't think it's not so much for me about how it would have changed things, but I just think it needed to be a little bit more transparent than that. It felt like, I don't think it was making it up as they go along, but it felt a bit like that to me, and it just felt a little bit manufactured. And I think everyone, and because from the sounds of it, not even Sanapu knew that second thing was there. It sounds like Brooke was told that just before she went to Tribal Council. That happened off camera. We didn't see that. No one back at Sanapu was expecting a Vavau member to join them later on. I just think we're playing for $500,000 here, and I think that needed to be a little bit more transparent. That's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I can see that because there's a fine line. Survivor isn't meant to be fair, obviously, and there are twists and turns that are a bit unfair, but they can't do that too many times. I think they have to pretty much stick to the general rules of the game, because if there's too many little surprises like that, it's very frustrating for the players when they can't rely on what's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's happened twice now. We had the mini tribe switch that happened a while back, where Connor and Sam ended up over on Vavau, and Nick and Tegan went over on Sanapu. And for Connor, Connor's still there, but that wasn't a great thing for him, whereas for Nick, it turned out to be the best thing ever. So that was, and again, that was something that was revealed sort of after the event. So there was a vote, and then they said, "Oh, actually, you're not voting to vote someone out. You're actually voting for someone to go to the other tribe." And again, I said at the time that I wasn't super comfortable with that. Now this has happened a second time. I'm just a little uneasy about the way these twists are being put on us, and I just think they could have achieved the same result simply by saying there is a second bit to it, and it will be revealed at Tribal Council. That's just what I'm thinking.
Yeah, well, of course, what this. What happened with this in the end is then the tribe has become even more unbalanced now with numbers.
Yeah, well, I mean, that would have happened anyway. They would have gone down to, what were they down to at that point, 3 or 4 or something?
Yes,
but you're right. It increased
the extra one.
It increased the extra on Sanapu, yeah. So it was a pretty big moment.
I don't know whether maybe the producers were hoping that Vavau might have won that challenge, and therefore it would be a way to swing the numbers back in their favour.
Maybe that was the thinking, but it's a big risk.
It is, yeah.
So that was the outcome. Sue headed over to Sanapu, and Connor, Phoebe, Kate, and Christy very dejectedly headed back to camp with Connor and Phoebe leading them out. But one thing happened. As Sue left, Sue said to Kate, "I'm with you all the way." I think we need to remember that.
Yes, and I think you can really trust Sue with her word. I think she's extremely trustworthy, isn't she?
Yeah, I think so. And, well, further to that, so moving on to Monday, we saw the exchange of trust happen in that
Tuesday?
Tuesday, sorry.
Tuesday night, yep.
Tuesday night's episode. We had the exchange of trust going on between Kate and Connor there. That was interesting. But I think, as you know, you just said with Sue, you can trust your word. I think you can absolutely say the same thing about Kate, and I think you can absolutely say the same thing about Connor. And Connor, in his confessional, said, she can trust me. So I think that's quite tight. I think those three.
Yeah, well, if those three can sit tight and try and make it through to the end, they could be quite powerful, couldn't they? Because
I agree. Yeah,
because I'm not sure that there are 3 others that are as tight. There are a few pairs of tight people, but probably not a trio. Do you think?
Yeah, I think that's probably right. Probably right. As I say, we'll talk about that when we talk about the merged tribe. But yeah, I think that's probably correct. There's a few people we don't really know where they stand. You're right. You got. Well, anyway, we'll come to that. We'll come to that. So here we are. It's now Tuesday. Sue arrives at Sanapu in absolute shock that she's been chosen to go across. And there was a bit of discussion at that point about why it was that Sue was chosen. And Brooke basically said the reason she did that is because she's the least threatening and it made her disposable. And that was my reaction about why they picked Sue. That in the event that Sanapu had to go to a tribal council, having Sue there would be a very easy vote for them. And that seemed to be the main reason why Sue was picked to go across.
Yeah, which is fair enough. But then we had Nick talking to Cameron saying that he's just dying to talk to Sue because he wants to find out why she voted for him all those moons ago. He's really
hanging on to it. He actually said, "I'm not angry." He said, "I'm not angry or bitter," and so he goes, "Yes, you are. You're yelling.
Yeah,
tone it down a bit."
No,
and he said he was hurt, and Sue said, "Well, I can't take it back." And then Nick said, "The decision worked in my favour." I mean, sometimes you really just have to go, "Well, okay, that wasn't great, but as it turns out, it worked out really well."
Yeah, no,
to him, he hasn't been to a tribal council since.
He really carries that grudge, and I mean, he was really getting worked up talking to Sue, and then Sue eventually said to him, "Lower it," as she said, and.
As I said, she said you're yelling, and and it was a strange thing to do in full view of the tribe. Not a great thing. I think that's if you're going to have that sort of conversation, you need to take it away, and you don't want other people sort of hearing that.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Anyway, and then we had. This is where I had my Hungry Jacks cravings again. We had round 2 of the Hungry Jacks product placement for the Immunity and Reward Challenge.
I can't believe this is the second Hungry Jacks thing because I don't think we've seen a Survivor before where they've had product placement twice by the same company.
If you're gonna fly a food stylist all the way to Samoa, you better get value for money out of the airfares.
Food stylist,
So I tell you what, and once again, those survivors did not disappoint, did they? The excitement about
right.
the Hungry Jacks burgers there in front of that lovely waterfall.
But this was a great challenge, though, wasn't it?
It was a great challenge, yeah. So this is the one where they had to spin around to release a bag, jump over a beam while still quite dizzy, do more spinning over some stepping posts, and then do a puzzle. And this was frustrating. This was probably the closest that the Vows got to winning one. It was very close in the end.
Well, I loved Connor. I thought he looked a bit like a drunk hobbit.
A drunk hobbit, yes, he did. Well,
playing this game, it's like, you know how they say they come in pints.
Yes, that's right.
That's what I was thinking of. But it's very.
And
funny.
as you said previously, you do think he looks a bit like Pippin from. And I totally agree. The way his hair's going,
that's
going
right.
Wild after a month out there. That's definitely right. So this had what I think is possibly an unprecedented situation of 6 people having to sit out, which was Sue Lee, Nick, Elle, Flick, and Kylie.
It's a joke, isn't it?
All sitting there, and look, they were shattered. They were absolutely shattered by this loss.
I can't believe that they're having yet another challenge, though, that finishes with a puzzle. It seems like 3/4 of the challenges finish with a puzzle, doesn't it? Yeah, which they don't normally rely so heavily on the puzzles.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So anyway, that was yet another. I've lost count now of how many a row the Vow have lost. But to me, this is the point where I started thinking this is starting to get a bit
it's
cruel.
Too much. Yeah,
it's starting to get a bit cruel, and it's getting very unbalanced, and almost in a situation now where the Vow couldn't come back. They're not winning rewards, so they're not getting the extra food that Sanapu are doing. They're having to compete in every single challenge, whereas Sanapu are sitting 6 people out. Not having to exert themselves. It had got too unbalanced and too skewed at this point.
Yeah, it's just a downward spiral that they just can't come out of that, I don't think.
Yeah, and not to mention the psychological aspect of just continually losing, and in that case, so close. It was just so close. So anyway, Sanapi won that. Off they went to the reward. Had the wonderful time eating Hungry Jacks and swimming in the waterfalls, and Vival back at camp, obviously trying to work out what on earth is going to happen.
Although Nick, again, still very bitter towards Sue.
Oh, wasn't he?
Wasn't
he? He wants revenge, he said. He's really, really hung up on Sue having voted for him.
Yep. I hope Nick gets to the jury, and then I can just imagine his address to the final 2 or 3 or whatever.
Particularly if one of them Sue.
Yeah, he is just going to grill those people until they cry.
It'll be high entertainment, that's for sure. So we had a bit of, I wouldn't actually call it scrambling this time back at camp. I think it was probably a little bit more obvious what was going to happen.
Well, I thought it was, it was mainly about Christy finding out that Phoebe was gunning for her, which was, I think, a surprise to her. But I don't know. I think it was probably Phoebe's only option in the end, though, wasn't it?
I think so.
To stick with the others, and that's where she got the Black Widow moniker, wasn't it? At that time, I think.
Yeah, I think I think that was mentioned at one stage. But I think it was obviously to us, it was obvious that Kate and Connor are very tight. I presume that Phoebe was quite aware of that. I think it probably would be reasonably obvious to her by now that was going on. So she knew she wasn't going to be able to break that up. Her only option was Christy. But unfortunately for her, Christy smelt a rat. And that was that. It was a very entertaining tribal council, though. I mean, Christy was being very evasive.
Well, actually, I found it very awkward, and maybe it's some of the inexperience of the host, JLP, because he was asking lots of questions or probing questions, or he was trying to probe, but he just wasn't getting anywhere. He wasn't getting any useful answers out of anyone. They were all clamming up or saying something that was very non-committal.
Yeah.
And I just thought, if this was Jeff Probst doing it, he always seems to find a way to get something out of someone, doesn't he?
He's pretty amazing like that, some of the stuff he gets people to say at Tribal Council. It's quite amazing sometimes. And I agree, but I think it was probably made a little bit worse in this case because that's just how Christy quite often responds to things, a little bit critically like that. So, you're right, though. It did make it an awkward sort of conversation there. But, look, in the end, it didn't really change anything. And Phoebe received 3 votes from Connor, Kate and Christy. Phoebe voted for Christy, and Phoebe was on her way. And once again, very gracious about it. Yeah, she outplayed me. Well done. She said she obviously got wind, and she got rid of me, and that was the right move for her. And well done to her for doing it. So I'm quite enjoying these confessionals that we're getting after each tribal council because everyone's been really quite good about it, except for Nick. And Nick's actually still in the game, which is the crazy thing.
Well, Phoebe did very well considering the hand that she'd been dealt. She probably had about the poorest hand of anyone in this game, pretty much. She did surprisingly well.
She did, and she did amazingly well. And for me, probably up until she left, she was probably, I think, the one who was most deserving of winning because of just the big moves she's been having to play since the start. She started out on Aganoa.
That's right.
That certainly wasn't a bed of roses over there. That was a tough trial to be on, and they didn't fare that well for quite a while. And then she found herself onto Val, which didn't win an immunity since that merge. So she's been fighting the whole way through, and so for me, she was the most deserving to win at that point. But I guess if you fight, what's the saying? Play by the sword, die with the sword.
Yes, that's right.
That's basically, I think, what happened to her.
That's right. Well, I think a bit of Phoebe remains in the game, to be honest. Shall we talk about that little teaser for next week?
Yeah. What have you got? What have you got in mind there, Stu?
Well, of course we've got JLP talking about the merge, which he did bring up during that last tribal council, a possible merge.
He did. Yep.
He was talking about and was talking about old ties and so on. So he was, it was fairly open. But what I thought was we saw the evidence of the merge coming up next week, and we saw the new buffs, and they're all black, as in the Black Widow. So it's like Phoebe's Black Widow buffs have prevailed.
I was wondering where you were going with that. I didn't actually notice that. Well spotted, Stu.
And there was
So yeah,
something
so we
else.
have got it. Oh yeah, go on.
Yeah, in that next week teaser, did you see what else? Did something else jump out at you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Please enlighten me.
Well, I was fairly certain that bit that they were at that they showed when with the sort of drop your buffs moment was a food auction.
It did look like it. Yes. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I think that's exactly what's happening.
yeah, and we always like food auctions because they're great fun.
They are great fun. You never know what you're going to get, do you?
That's right. There's always some winners and there's always some losers.
Always winners and losers, and there's always someone desperate for a piece of cake that turns out to be a tuna milkshake or something. So we know we're getting some merged tribes. So I done a little bit of thinking about all of this. So
Okay.
we have a chat about what a new merged tribe might look like.
Yep, go for it.
So it looks like we've got a tribe of 13, which is quite large for a merged tribe. We have 6 Sanapu originals on that tribe, and they are Brooke, Connor, Flick, Kylie, Matt, and Sam. We have 4 Vavau originals, Jenna Louise, Kate, Nick, and Sue. And we have 3 Aganoa originals, and they are Elle, Christy, and Lee. Now, going to those 4 Vavau originals, Jenna Louise, Kate, Nick, and Sue, I just cannot see those guys voting as a block at all. I mean, Nick is in outright war against Sue. Kate has clearly aligned herself to Connor. I think Sue has aligned herself to Kate based on that comment she made.
Didn't Nick and Jenna have that blow up as well a few episodes back? Didn't they have that blow up?
Oh, you're right. They did. I'd forgotten about that, but yes, you're quite right. So I
no
think
one
they
likes each other on that tribe.
No, the vows have almost been cursed since the start, and that's not a block I think we can rely on. Looking at the Aganoa originals, you've got Elle, Christy, and Lee. I mean, I think we know both from the show and also some gossip mag stories that Elle and Lee are probably aligned.
That's right. And
we know that Lee is very fond of Sam, so I think we can probably include him in that alliance. Where Christy goes in this scenario, I have no idea, to be absolutely honest. So I actually think a majority alliance could look something like this. So I think we talked about Elle, Lee, and Sam.
Yep.
I think so. Just put them to one side for a moment. Excuse me. So then I think we know that Kate and Connor are pretty tight, and they've shared their trust, and we saw them do that. We know that Kate and Sue are quite close. Sue has said at the end of a tribal council she's with Kate. So I think it's probably reasonable to expect that Connor, Kate, and Sue will stick together, and we talked about that earlier. I think there seemed to be some sort of bond very early in the series between Connor and Kylie, and it started way back in episode 1 when Connor burnt his hand. But I think when Connor, and they're all also, the other thing is they're both firefighters. Connor's a volunteer firefighter for the CFA, and I'm not sure whether Kylie's full time or volunteer. I'm not sure, but they are both firefighters, and I think they may have bonded there. Now, I think it's an opportunity for Kylie to perhaps find herself in a bit more of a majority, maybe. So I wouldn't be at all surprised if we see Connor, Kate, Kylie, and Sue forming a majority of 4. And I think then the link back to Elle, Lee, and Sam might be through Connor, because Connor had a pretty good relationship with Sam, noting that Sam did actually vote for him in that tribal council where Connor ended up moving over to the Vow. So not quite sure about that link. But there is potential there, I think, for an alliance of 7, and that would be a majority.
It's really throwing things up in the air, isn't it?
Go on.
Yeah, but there's still so many people left to go to be voted out, isn't there? Do you think that they might have a situation where they might vote out 2 people in one episode just to catch up a bit?
Maybe. Wouldn't surprise me. They may do that. But yeah, that's happened before.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a few then interesting other people to think about. So we just talked about Jenna Louise and where she goes, and we just haven't seen enough of her interactions at Sanapu to know really where she's aligned. We know that Brooke and Flick, who I'm now going to call Brick. I think
Fluke.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Oh, I don't know, Brick or Fluke. I don't really mind.
Yeah.
I like that. We know they're tight. I think that's pretty much unbreakable. But who do they link up with? Where does Matt go? And I'm not quite sure either. Again, because we just haven't seen enough of it. I'm not quite sure where his alliances are.
we know that Brooke and Fleck, Brooke particularly is not as tight with Matt anymore because in that previous episode she wasn't too happy with Matt.
Yeah.
And
exactly right.
So it's all a bit up in the air, actually.
So I'm not real sure where he will have gone to. So we've got a couple of interesting episodes ahead as this all shuffles around, and of course whoever wins the first immunity challenge will have an impact on all of this as well. But that's my initial thoughts on where some of the alliances may fall. But I was also starting to think we're at the immunity stage. So who do you think you would want at the end? As you know, how people quite often, a strategy that's quite often played is that you take someone to the end who is unlikely to win, so who you're more likely to beat.
A goat.
What's that? Sorry.
That's what they call a ghost, isn't it? A ghost.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't quite hear what you said. So yeah,
a survivor goat. Yeah. But
so who do you think? Who do you think those people are at this point?
Yeah, well, it's got to be people that I would have thought probably Nick, because I don't think Nick seems to have many friends, does he?
I definitely think Nick's one of those. I definitely think Nick falls into that category, and I think the other one might actually be Christy.
Yeah. Well, she was my second choice actually. That's right. Yeah. So
they're the two I'm thinking of that actually now that they've made the merge, might do quite well for that reason. But hard to know. So we'll watch with interest over the next couple of episodes to see where how it all unfolds.
Yes, yep, should be good.
It will be good. It's been great.
Have you got any other Survivor news, Craig?
I do have some Survivor news. We talked last time about how the new US series, which is Millennials versus Gen X.
Yes.
Channel 9 have now announced what they're going to do. So it premiered in the United States today being Thursday. It's going to go to air on a 1 week delay in Australia, apparently,
really?
which is a little bit later than what they normally do.
Yep.
So the first episode goes to air here on Thursday, the 29th of September. For those of you that live in a state where NRL is king, it will be at 10 p.m. after the footy show. And if you live in an AFL state, it's going to be at 10:30 also after the footy show from Thursday the 29th. And I guess that may change after the football seasons are over. But that's the current plan. So it's caused a little bit of a kerfuffle because it's normally they do try and broadcast it pretty like within a day basically of it going to air in the States. But this time it's on a week delay at this point. Right. But good news. So
okay, that's good.
So it won't be competing head to head, but that means we have 4 nights of Survivor from next week.
Crazy.
I don't know if I can cope with that.
No, I think I might wait till this Australian Survivor's finished before I even start the US Survivor. I think.
Yeah, not a bad idea. I might record it and save it and watch it in a bit of a binge later. It's a lot of Survivor to be watching in 1 week.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Are there any tweets that you caught up with, Stu?
No, I haven't been able to catch up with tweets for the last week or so I'll get back onto that next week.
All right, look forward to that.
Yep, I think that's about all I have.
Yep, no, that's been a great recap of the last 3 weeks, last 3 days. It's been a crack of a week of Survivor. I think my favourite moment, if we're talking favourite moments, would have to have been the blindside against Craig. There was a little giggle between Phoebe and Christy as they walked out of that tribal council, having delivered that devastating move, and I just thought that was just awesome.
Well, thanks everyone for joining us for this episode, and we should be back to our sort of normal schedule and normal recording situation next week. So we'll look forward to catching up next week with the next episode of Survivor. And
absolutely.
Thanks
Can't
again,
wait.
Craig.
Thank you, Stu. Great talking.
And we'll catch you again next week. See you guys.
See you later.